Hey everyone, Enrique here. Welcome to another review. We're back once again to review Daredevil Born Again Season 2, episodes 4 to 6. Now, by the time of this video, the final episode will already have been aired, and we already would know where every character is going, how it ended, and how it will progress in season 3, which is really confirmed, so there's no worries about it. Also, before I say anything, yes, I am also aware that the ratings on that season were not the best, but I argue that it's still a much better product than season 1, and it has a lot of value that no fan should be dismissed. And in any respects, yes, it is screwed up because of what the time slot of Invincible and The Boys. I prefer to watch Invincible too. The Boys, I don't care, but regardless, I'm not here for that. I'm just here to review the episodes to see how it all progressed, how it all continued, and how all massive choices led to massive actions and consequences. Now, once again, I should probably warn you about everything. This is a follow up to season 1, so if you want to know what happens on that previous season, check out my videos or check out the episodes as well. Number 2, this is full of spoilers, so please watch this video accordingly. And number 3, this is not a kids show. There's a lot of curse words and violence, so viewers' discretion is advised. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about episode 4, Gloves Off. Many fans have declared this episode in particular to be one of the best out of all the seasons. And I'm not disagreeing with that because it shows us pretty much everything about Bullseye. And that's the core of this episode, how we see Benjamin Poindexter trying to get his revenge against the Fisks, and how all of his choices will lead to consequences beyond what he initially thought. But that's the beauty about this episode. Everything is not just about him, it's about also Matt's battle against Fisk and trying to get the truth out, as well as seeing Kingpin trying to maintain his little crystal city that he wants to protect so much, not just for everybody that he cares about, but also for Vanessa and for himself as well. So the episode begins seeing Bullseye in his routine, living undercover in an apartment under the alias Tony, which is pretty much a nod to Tony Stark. I don't know why. We see him being in a diner, ordering a milkshake, and then he calls the ABTF so they could, thinking that Frank Castle is in the diner. But of course, it was Benjamin Poindexter dressing up as Bullseye and kills all the ABTF soldiers and using his abilities and pretty much making a whole mess so everybody can see and leaving a sign saying, yeah, I'm the one who did this. And all the while we see Matt and Karen in an undisclosed location, or basically in a building that is isolated. We see that the swordsman has left the show because he doesn't want to be involved into this and because he needs to restructure his life again. We see that Angela has one of the drives that Karen gave her in order to publicize the truth, and they get the statement of one of the guys from the ship, Christoph. So they get all that. We see Matt trying to find Poindexter and trying to stop him, thinking that maybe he has some answers or maybe to bring him to justice. Now, of course, we all know Karen doesn't like Benjamin for everything that he has done, but I'm going to get into that in a moment. But yeah, throughout also the episode, we see Fisk preparing for a fight, specifically at Falwell's gym, where Matt's father used to fight there. And we see some flashbacks of Matt in his childhood and his father, so that's pretty neat, connecting the Netflix series to this one. So I appreciate that little continuity. All the while, we see Vanessa talking to Senator McDuffie, in which she's trying to convince her that Wilson is under control, that she's there to make sure that Wilson doesn't go off the rails, that his powers as mayor are not making him uncontrollable, which is a lie. But then again, Vanessa has always been able to maintain Fisk's, more aggressive side. So we see that throughout the episode. We see more BB reports undisclosed as New York Born Again videos, when she dresses up as Kingpin and making parodies about him. We see Daniel and we see Buck Cashman interacting. Actually, we don't see that, but I remember that from the last episode. But we do see Buck Cashman trying to clean up all the messes that are left by the heroes, by Bullseye, or even by Kingpin himself. And he seems even more uncomfortable doing so. It seems like Buck has started to feeling a little bit more unsure, but he doesn't show it yet. He doesn't seem to be, all saying, no, this is wrong, I can't do it. But it shows that, this is becoming out of control. He understands that, and he's the one cleaning up the messes. So it's getting a little bit more complicated. I'm gonna get to Buck in a moment, as well as Daniel. But we see that throughout the episode, how they trying to clean up messes, how Mr. Charles is trying to play a little peacemaker between his company as well as Kingpin, but he's unsuccessful in doing so. I already explained my theory about Mr. Charles. I don't think it's gonna be true, but hey, that's all hindsight. Still, I have my hopes. But regardless of that, we see Matt fighting Bullseye, and he points out that he wants to do one good deed, that Dex is looking for doing something good out of all the things that he has done wrong. And he feels like the only way to do so is with one death. And that is something that we're going to see in this episode. Throughout it, we see Kingpin doing this public charity about boxing a super boxing player, champion, for charity. Only to disclose that, no, I'm going to show off my powers. He orders Vanessa to stay away in case something bad happens. Vanessa doesn't oblige. She arrives and tries to support Wilson, trying to contain his rage again. But unfortunately, when everything seems okay in Fiskland, we see that Bullseye arrives, and we see that he is ready to kill. So he uses one of those crystal decoration snow globes. It's not a snow globe, it's more like a crystal decoration about Kingpin and his crystallized version of New York, which is a metaphor for the entire episode, how he wants to maintain that crystallized ideal version of New York City. And he uses that decoration to throw it, it seems, to Fisk, and Vanessa uses one of the guns that Buck gave to her to shoot at Bullseye. Kingpin destroys it with that belt that they created for him, and at the nick of time, we see Matt arriving. Bullseye is badly injured, but they both escape Fogwell's gym. But just when we thought everything was just all right, we see that Vanessa had one of those shreds of crystal embedded in her forehead. And a lot of blood comes out, which leads us to believe that Vanessa is going to die. She doesn't die in this episode, but the image is not lying to you. This is the image that probably changes everything. And that brings us to the next episode, which is episode 5, The Grand Design. This is the episode in which we follow up what happened previously, and it's also a little callback and recreation of that original Daredevil season 1 aesthetics and feelings. We see that throughout the episode, as Matt is trying to get Bullseye somewhere away from the AVTF, and Kingpin is trying to keep Vanessa alive in the hospital, we see flashbacks of each character at different points in life. We start with Vanessa, of course, since she's the one who got injured, and we see a flashback before she met Wilson about how she wanted to use that painting called Rabbit in the Snowstorm, which was the painting that Kingpin wanted to have, and that's how he met Vanessa. It was a very important painting for him because it flashed back to his childhood, how he stared at a blank wall when his father is doing something, mistreating his wife, and how he killed his father. These are connecting to Fisk's childhood and how at the end of the day, he never outgrew his trauma as an 8-year-old kid. I think he was 8-year-old or maybe 10-year-old. It's hard for me to remember. At the same time, we see a flashback of how Kingpin was still on the shadows. We see Wesley coming back, which was appreciated. The actor who played Wesley came back for this one. We see flashbacks also to Matt and Foggy again in their original looks from season 1. Very much trying to be a little bit more. The camera, the cinematography, the camera work, as well as the shots, all and the lights, all scream Netflix season 1 of Daredevil. Elson Foggin is back as Foggy Nelson. Eldon Henson, that's the name of the actor, comes back as Foggy Nelson. How Matt and Foggy were still trying to get Nelson and Murdoch up and running, how they interacted with one criminal that had a connection with Foggy, and how taught Matt about mercy. At the same time, we see that both Buck and Daniel are trying to suppress the media, trying to get the news about the injuries of Vanessa. And we see Bullseye's death wish. He wants to die. He craves for death because he feels like he done his part and he's ready to just be done with it, to die. And he begs Matt, or at the very least he demands to Matt to let him die, to let the ABTF kill him, because he already feels like his mission was accomplished. He got his vengeance towards Wilson. Because remember, Wilson manipulated Dex, and these are the consequences of Wilson's actions. However, Matt, remembering Foggy, remembering the good times before they had all this craziness in front of them, he still remembers Foggy and his wisdom, or at the very least his good deeds. And that's one of the reasons he decided to put Nelson on top before Murdoch, because for Matt, Foggy was always the voice of reason for him, even in his dire times, and that is something important. And yeah, throughout the episode, it's just remembering who they were before this and seeing them now afterwards in the present. And we see in the final moments of this episode, the Vanessa regains conscious, but she feels different. She acts different, trying to say to Wilson to be a little bit nice. Demands or asks for a pineapple juice. Says, "Oh, it's angelic." Trying to ask Wilson about the good times when they met each other, but that's the last straw, because in Al's final moments, Vanessa doesn't make it anymore. The injuries were severe and she collapses. Also, throughout the flashbacks, we see Wilson and Vanessa on the beach, like they were in a vacation. And I argue that this was in a moment in time that happened, maybe after the blip or after the snap, but I'm gonna get into that one day. But for now, yes, Vanessa Fisk is officially dead. And when I saw this moment, we all knew that this episode was going to unleash a version of Wilson that was going to create mayhem and destruction towards the city that he tried to protect so long. And that brings us to episode 6, Requiem. Believe it or not, and this is out of this context, but there was also an episode from another show that had that same title card in that same 6th episode, Requiem. Like, it's ridiculous. It was called Monarch, A Legacy of Monsters. It's a show based on the Monsterverse where Kong and Godzilla are inhabited in. Maybe one day I'll talk about it, but that's besides the point. For now, we see that our heroes and our villains are in different places. We see that Matt took Dex to the warehouse or to the hideout where Frank Castle was, and that's where Karen is hiding also. We see Wilson mourning the loss of his wife, going to the funeral, all dressed in white. The coffin is, of course, white. He kills the doctor who performed the surgery. He was very mad, and I don't know why, but any doctor who approaches to Wilson to give him a hug for condolences, he should know better. He should know that Wilson was ready to kill him, and he does so with the bear hug that he gave to the doctor. So yeah, pretty dumb move, doctor. Pretty dumb move. But this episode should tell you that Vanessa's death has changed everything for our heroes and our villains. And throughout the episode, we see the ramifications of that. We see Matt trying to deal not only with the fallout of all this and trying to gain information and trying to stop some of the cargo that the Kingpin has acquired from the Northern Star that was acquired by the ABTF by destroying it. But we also see having to deal with Karen's impulse for killing Dex because she still feels resentment towards him for the death of Foggy, the death of Father Langton. She's at a breaking point and she feels like the only way for everyone to be safe is for her to kill Dex as well as Kingpin. And this is something that Matt has to confront about Karen because, yeah, this is the mentality that she is right now. But it's not just her that is feeling this way of vengeance, but also the doctor, Heather Glenn. Remember, you probably remember her. She wasn't in the last two episodes. She disappeared. Maybe we don't know where she was. Maybe in an appointment, or maybe incarcerating more people, giving them evaluations. But regardless of that, she, after learning the death of Vanessa, it makes her feel lost because remember what I said that Vanessa and Heather were starting to interact, like confining in each other? Well, now that Vanessa's gone, it's making her more sad, more devastated, but also making her more angry and almost like she wants to do something about it, like she wants to take vengeance with her own hands. And throughout this episode and the next ones that we're going to see, she's about to explode, and it's obvious. Buck is there also to making her calm, but is basically resorting to that moment where Muse attacked her in her office. And that is something that Heather is feeling like she wants to take control back again and almost channelizing her own inner killer, and is making her more and more unstable. All the while we see Daniel with BB trying to figure out what to do next. Obviously, BB is trying to put the news about Wilson's shady operations, using Daniel to get to Wilson and to get all the information. Daniel is starting to suspect, and this episode confirms Daniel's suspicions. But at the same time, we see how both BB and Daniel are confiding each other, let alone because that's his birthday that day, ironically. The death of Vanessa, or the funeral of Vanessa, is also the day of his birthday, and he feels not so well, and he feels like everything is coming crashing down. And now Bucky has gave him the task to find out the source, which he knows is BB, and orders him to do something, to tell her the location, and to basically be loyal to Fisk. And this is something that Daniel is also struggling with. We see the little snippets about his backstory, the posters of gangsters and self-help posters. We see his mother, who's a bit of a wreck, or at the very least not well mentally. We see BB feeling sympathy and some kind of love towards Daniel, and Daniel is feeling like more distant by the minute. Oh, but they're not done with the surprises. For you see, we also saw the return of a certain PI asshole detective, and that is, of course, Jessica Jones, played once again by Kristen Rader. By the way, the whole asshole thing is a compliment. I know that doesn't sound right, but it's for me a form of compliment because that's who she is, a badass, no nonsense, and kind of a, you know, a cynical person. And I like that about Jessica Jones. And we see her in a new stage. She's not only a mother, but we also saw her in a condo house outside of New York. But we see that her powers are different. Sometimes she has them, sometimes they disappear, almost like an on and on switch. And that is something that is making her difficult to fight crime, which is something that she doesn't do all the time after she became a mother, but it's still important to do. I'm gonna get into Jessica in a moment, but needless to say, it was good to see her back in action alongside Matt. Of course, remembering that they worked together in the Defender series, so I'm looking forward to see her more. But regardless of that, yeah, she's helping Matt to find about the weapons. We learn about Mr. Charles trying to acquire people with powers as well. That is also his agenda. And speaking of Mr. Charles, he's starting to get in desperate with Wilson and decides that he's going to Mayor McDuffie, or at the very least Senator McDuffie, to make the deal to take away Wilson's powers and institutionize him as mayor. And this is something beautiful because we see how Wilson's rage is about to explode, but we also see Matt and his actions, or trying to see how the influence of the city is starting to make him worry, because everybody now believes that they are vigilantes and a voice of reason. That's what the slogan "Rebel, Resist" is now displayed, and that is something that Karen helps to do. Bring footage about the people who she, alongside, the Kristen McDuffie, have been interviewing, the people who were kidnapped at Red Hook, and they display every crime that Wilson has done. And we see Matt and Wilson confronting each other in that basement where the painting was, all still covered in blood. Rabbit on the Snowstorm is something that Wilson goes back to. Now that he doesn't have Vanessa, he feels that that's all he got. And Matt is imploring to Wilson to stop it, to stop causing more damage, because he believes that they both hurt each other. This is no longer a fight for the city. This is a fight for each other. They fighting each other for nothing, and they feel like everything that they have done have led to the death of Foggy, the death of Vanessa, the death of Wesley that they show in the flashbacks. Wilson doesn't want to hear it. They fight, leading to that cool signature moment where Matt uses his knees and his billy clubs to nail Wilson in the face. That was from the comics, so I like that I saw that. And yeah, we see that also that the ABTF officers are using lethal force. In particular, Glenn Powell is using one of his fellow soldiers, or fellow officers, and he kills him because he knows he was one of the guys who gave Matt the car to Red Hook airport, and he kills him and frames him into the people, making him use lethal force to maintain the situation, and is getting out of control, which leads to Karen's capture because she got caught by Powell as well. So yeah, a lot of insanity in this episode as well. So let's break it down in what I found out in this episode. So I'm gonna start with the one that matters the most and that had the most impact in this episode, which is the death of Vanessa Fisk. Now, this death had been foreshadowed for a long time, not just at the beginning of season 2, but I believe it was already foreshadowed in season 3 of the original Daredevil series. And I believe that this was the ultimate result of Kingpin's consequences for using Dex. But let's not make any mistake. Vanessa had a hand in all this, and she caused it when she decided to use Dex to kill Foggy in order to maintain the cover of the Red Hook port. And this was pretty much her downfall, because Dex, not only did he felt utilized by Wilson, but now by Vanessa. Now, Vanessa, throughout this entire season, or at the very least for these few episodes that she had fear for her life, because of what she used in Dex, because she manipulated him into doing this and tried her best to cover her tracks, all to protect her husband for any downfall that he could suffer if he was mayor. She paid the ultimate price because of that. And sure, throughout this season, we saw her like having that edge of feeling danger around her. We saw her in her dreams. We saw the fear when she acquired a gun from Buck in order to protect herself. She confided in Heather in order to see solitude, or at the very least confinement, into doing or releasing a monster that she and Wilson created. Now, Wilson had a huge hand into creating Dex as Bullseye, because he used his past, he used his mental state, and he used his abilities to try to be a free man again, use him as a weapon. But then Dex discovered the truth about what Wilson did to him. Then Vanessa decided to use Dex once again in order to clear her alibi, or clear the port from any police, any investigation. And because of that, she, like I said, paid the ultimate price because of that. She essentially died at her own hands, as well as Wilson's. Now, the death of Vanessa also marks an important part in Wilson Fisk's life, because this was the woman that controlled the beast within that was inside Fisk. Wilson, through season 1, didn't want anybody to see him. He was very much a closed case. He didn't want anybody to see him. He was remaining on the shadows, not letting anybody see him or to talk to him. He was pretty much a one-man island. And when he started to use his illegal activities in order to gain control over the city after the events of the Avengers, he was pretty much that, just an isolated man. And when Vanessa came into the picture, he felt like a human again, that for the first time in his life, he had love, he had confinement. He did everything he could to protect Vanessa, to show her a better New York, a better life. Vanessa bought into that. She became a criminal just like Wilson. And because of that, because of Wilson's actions, in order to preserve her, to keep her alive, and to be with her one more time, once again, this was his ultimate downfall. And that's why the death of Vanessa mattered in this show, because without her love, without her confinement, without her presence, Wilson doesn't have any restraints. He is the same way as he was as a kid, filled with anger, filled with resentment, filled with rage. He's a powder keg that is about to explode, and he's willing to punish the entire city to make everybody pay and make everybody suffer the same pain that he feels. And while these episodes doesn't show that kind of rage, it shows the desperation, the cold, shivery life that he's living now, that cold demeanor that he is having right now, and the fact that he killed his doctor because he failed to save her life shows that he doesn't have anybody to hold him back. Now, it comes into theory of what I said about Wilson having a son, Richard Fisk. I don't know if we ever see that or we ever going to see that. I mean, Wilson is about due to appear in season 3, so we know he's still alive. We don't know under what circumstances. We still need to see the final episode of these seasons, which again, it could have come out already. But I have to believe that this is the main motivation for Wilson to be outside or to be alive. And maybe eventually it will lead him to find that son that he had with Vanessa that he never met. That's my theory, of course. I'm not saying that maybe Richard is not in this universe. Maybe he never had a son with Vanessa. I'm just saying that this whole thing could lead to a different story for Wilson. But like I said, this whole Vanessa death marks an important chapter in his life and is probably going to make him into a more dangerous man than he already is. And he's the mayor of New York City, so that means that he could do a lot of horrible things. And throughout the episodes, we see that with the AVTF and with Buck Cashman. And that's something that will mark Wilson for practically the rest of his life. Now, speaking of Bullseye, let's talk about something that a lot of people pointed out. That maybe this season is marking like a redemption arc for Benjamin Poindexter, aka Bullseye. Now, let me just say this. Wilson Bethel is a charismatic, charming actor. I do believe that he makes this character something unique and something more interesting more than what Colin Farrell did in 2003's version of Daredevil when he played Bullseye. That being said, I don't think Bullseye is a redeemable person. Or at the very least, I don't see him becoming a hero. And here's the thing. We all know that people can change. We all know that not everybody in the comic book always remains a villain. I can draw examples. Loki, Harley Quinn, Two-Face. There are so many heroes and villains that have gone through changes. We see heroes becoming villains, we see villains becoming heroes. And we see how those things marks a chapter in their lives. Movie is no exception. Like I said, Loki became somewhat of a redeemable character. Not somewhat. He became a redeemable character, and not just by seeing him in the movies, but also in his own TV series. However, with Bullseye, I don't think that's possible or even something that I want to see. Because let's face it, he has blood on his hands, then nothing in the world could make him any better. He killed Foggy. He killed Father Langton. He killed a priest in a church. Think of that severity of those actions. He killed his friend Agent Nadeem, or at the very least, his FBI partner. He killed thousands of people. And whether those people that he killed were bad guys, it doesn't matter. He is still an assassin. Now, some comparison will be made by talking about how he's similar to Frank Castle, right? But here's the difference between Benjamin Poindexter and Frank Castle. Frank is aware of his actions. He's aware that what he's doing is brutal, but he's not a monster. He doesn't kill anybody who's left and right. He is not a blunt instrument, as much as the media thinks it is. But Frank has a conscience. He has people who care about him, Karen in particular. He has a strong moral compass, or at the very least, he has a sense of right and wrong. Sure, those things can also be dangerous in a man like Frank, especially with his abilities, but he's still on the good guy's side. But with Benjamin Poindexter, with Bullseye, I don't think so. And that's why I don't believe that he should be redeemed. Or at the very least, I don't think he should be a heroic character or an anti-hero. In my opinion, he should be that, a villain, an opposite for Matt to fight. Because I also believe, and this is an unpopular opinion, but I believe the Bullseye is a much more adversary, just like Kingpin is to Matt. Because, well, Matt is basically a man who dresses up as a devil, and uses billet clubs to fight and to make hurt, he's still a hero. He has a strong moral compass. He knows right from wrong. He even has the ability of being blind, or not an ability. Because he's blind, he's able to be more patient, more calm, more, how can I say this, more kind to people. But Bullseye, with all the abilities in the world that he has that he could use for good, he uses it for his own means. And this episode of Blows Off shows us that he's not there for redemption or for a good deed. Despite his proclamations, he's still doing this for his own sake, for his own need of revenge. I don't need to explain what happened to Bullseye throughout this entire life, because I already explained it in past videos. But it points taken that he's there to make sure that he gets what he wants, which is revenge. He's in it for himself, not for any grandiose enlightenment of being a good guy, or because he believes that needs to do something good. He's there for himself. He's there to pay revenge to Fisk and for Vanessa as well. He believes in an eye for an eye. That's always been his MO. That has always been his agenda. And that is something that we need to understand about Benjamin Poindexter. I don't think we should see him as a redeemable character, but more of a powder cake as well. Just like Daredevil, just like Wilson, he has his own story and he also is ready to explode as well. And honestly, I think it will make him a much better adversary to Matt rather than a redeemable character. And it could impact also Matt's character, but that's something that we have to wait and see. So, with all that, let's talk about another part that I've been looking forward to talk about. The return of Jessica Jones. I don't think it's any mistake when I say that Jessica Jones is one of my favorite female superheroes of all time. And she's not a superhero. She's a drunk, alcoholic PI who beats people up, bad guys in particular, to get the truth and to get paid. That's who she was in the original show. But now we see her in a new light. Not only do we see her as a mother, but we saw her be in a different kind of life. Like, this is something almost 180-degree different from what we last saw her. But in order for me to get the context, I should probably talk about Jessica Jones. I'm not going to talk about the entire show, but I'm going to talk about the main parts. Like, Jessica Jones had an accident as a child. She got superpowers of strength and abilities, agilities, of course. And when she was growing up, she met a guy called Kilgrave, who was played by David Tennant, the Doctor Who. The guy who played the Doctor is now playing a bad guy in the MCU, which I love. But yeah, he manipulated Jessica with his own powers. But then she got freed, and then with the trauma of her life, she became a PI investigator to not only resolve her case, but also other cases. That is something that we learned from Jessica. Now, it's something important, and this is spoilers for season 3, especially through the end. But Jessica had to fight her best friend, Trish Walker, basically almost like her sister because she grew up with her. Trish went out of control. She started to use her powers. She acquired powers, of course, to exact revenge, thinking that it's justice. I could make a whole video in season 3, so stay tuned for that. But regardless of that, Trish ended up fighting Jessica, and Jess had to stop her from doing more harm. Trish went to jail, and this left Jessica to either with options, in this case to leave New York and to live a secluded life. But then she heard the voice of Kilgrave in her head and decided to stay in New York. That was one of the ends of that. She gave her alias PI investigation to her friend and neighbor Malcolm, And that's where the show left off. And now we see her in a new light in this season. So you're probably wondering, what happened in those years with Jessica? When did she had a child? When did she had a home away from New York? And what happened to her powers? Now, the episode Requiem explains that when she had Danielle, which is the name of her daughter, she started to suffer some setbacks. Like her powers came back, other times they left. It's hard to say what happened, but it had to do with her genes or her powers being passed on to her daughter when she gave birth to her. That is something that we can speculate and we learn. But now you're probably wondering, when did Jessica have a child? And this is where I had to bring Luke Cage. Now, in season 3, in the finale, we saw that Mike Coulter, who plays Luke Cage in the MCU now, visited her in the last episode, trying to bring Jessica some perspective with his own set of life about what he's doing, what she should do in order to stop her. And that's the last time we saw Luke. So take that in consideration, and as well as taking the whole MCU canon, because we can assume that Jessica Jones season 3 took place before the blip, before the snap, before Infinity War. And during that time, half of the population of the universe basically was cut in half, was disappearing in dust. Taking that in consideration, as well as taking the fact that Jessica left her PI investigation, left alias investigations to Malcolm, and now she didn't have anywhere to go and she was about to leave. I have a theory that during that time, and during that time where the snap happened, that maybe Jessica and Luke confided in each other, had a relationship, maybe even a romance. Probably ended up having sex one day. Jessica found out that she got pregnant, and after the snap, after the blip day, then maybe that's where she had Danielle. And after that, she decided to have a normal, secluded life outside of New York and had a baby with Luke, in this case, Danielle. Now, judging by Danielle's age, I would assume that she's 5 years old. So, with that in consideration, we can say that Jessica has been living all this time as a mother, and maybe Luke, during that time, has been visiting, or maybe is living with them. But we also have to remember one thing. Luke, after the season of his ended, he ended up becoming the new king of Harlem. He ended up having all the fortune that Maria Stokes left to him in order to show him that he's no better than her and the criminals he's stopping. So he became the new king of Harlem. And during that time, we don't know what happened to him. I don't know what were the ramifications. We know that Mike Coulter, alongside Finn Jones, who play Iron Fist, are coming back for season 3. That is confirmed. That is 100% confirmed. We now know that he's going to be in the show, but we don't know what happened to him. Not to spoil anything in season 7, but we know that he's been doing things for Mr. Charles. So we have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, it is good, regardless of all that and all that I've said, it's good to see Krysten Ritter back as Jessica Jones. In my opinion, this is the best character that she has ever played. And let me tell you, Krysten Ritter is talented as hell. Like, you can see her in other shows, other movies. And this is the one that stands out the most, because it took a character like Jessica Jones, who is basically an alcoholic, an angry woman, and a PI detective who doesn't care about anything and about anyone, and she's still doing the right thing for the sake of, I don't know, her own moral compass, but also for the people she cares about. And it's good to see that Krysten Ritter hasn't lost that touch. She could be a mother and all, but she's still the same badass as she always been. And yeah, I said that she was an asshole, but Jessica would agree that she was also an asshole too. This is a form of compliment for me, not to insinuate any insults. It's just that Jessica has always been this character, and it's good to see her like that again because it's what I like about the character. I already talked about Jessica in my top 10 favorite superheroes, and she's there. And I enjoy her for the way she is, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I don't know what changes will bring now that she's a mother, but I'm looking forward to see her in season 3. So yeah, I'm really glad that she's back. All right, so now let's keep going with, in this case, the category of Karen becoming lost in her vengeance or getting lost in her quest for vengeance. Now, this is something that we saw throughout the entire season. Karen is in a different space, in a different headspace, and she's starting to resort to Frank's own ways of getting the bad guys out. In this case, killing. Now, as much as I love to see Karen in this show, I don't think this is something good that is happening to the character. But I mean it in a good way because we're supposed to see Karen's mentality in all of this. We saw her struggle with her own decisions and with the people around her. Now that she is starting to lose her grip in saying, no, we need to take down the bad guys, we need to kill them because that's the only way to stop everything. But this is something that it's probably wrong for the character because Karen has always represented the hope for Matt, that she was the light at the end of the day. Now, we all know that Karen had her own guilts and mistakes, her brother's death, killing Wesley, and all this. But this is a point where Karen is just saying enough is enough, or she's in a breaking point. And hell, the episode Rec Room shows us that Karen is about to explode. She was willing to kill Bullseye for her revenge. She didn't care if he was alive or not, or he could redeem himself. She only cares about getting revenge for Foggy. That's all she had in her mind. Matt was there to stop it, of course, but this sends Karen into a rage, saying that blaming Matt for leaving guys like Fisk and Bullseye alive while the people he cares about, the people he loves, are dying. And that is something that is very, very horrible to hear from Karen, because she always taught Matt and everyone else that there are better ways. She was the moral compass for Frank Castle even. But now she's in a point where she believes that the only way to stop the bad guys is by killing them. And this is resorting more and more to Frank's mentality. But this is something that Matt is even horrified because he doesn't want any of this to happen to her. He doesn't want to see Karen become a monster, become a criminal, become like Frank, because despite her best, despite everything, despite all this terrible circumstances, Matt believes that there is still ways to stop bad guys without killing them. Now, of course, Matt has his own ways of feeling guilty, but that is still the point. He still believes that there's still a way to stop the bad guys without killing them. And that is true. There's always an alternative. But Karen doesn't want to see that. And she's in a point where she has to make a decision. And her actions will probably have consequences. Some people have said that maybe this will lead to Karen leaving in order to seek Frank and start a relationship. But let's be honest, even Frank doesn't want to do that because he just cares more about his family, because he still loves them despite being dead. And that is something that is at the core of Frank Castle. He tries to become he's a Punisher because he only has his family in his memories, and he feels like he has to take vengeance for them. So yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen, to see Frank with Karen. I just don't see that as a possibility. Sorry, it's just not happening. I don't think so. But hey, that's just my take. But now let's talk about Matt and Wilson's two sides of one coin. This is gonna be short, I promise, but it is definitely showing us the parallels between both Matt and Wilson. They both are in the same goal of saving the city. But while Matt is trying to prevent it to becoming a hellhole, Kingpin is just trying to maintain control. Matt seeks justice while Wilson seeks control. And that is some of the things that makes them rivals, because in their quest of stopping each other, they have lost people along the way. Matt has lost people. Foggy Nelson, his best friend Foggy. He has lost Father Langton. He has lost a lot of people. But Wilson has lost as well. Wesley, Vanessa now. So this is getting into him. He's now on a point where he cannot control his own rage. Matt acknowledges that what they're doing is not for the city, but for themselves. And Matt is trying to do the right thing and put an end to it. Leave the city and ask Kingpin to do the same. Leave New York, leave the town. Don't ever come back. Just leave it be. But he can't do it. He has nothing to lose. He has nothing to gain. He has nothing. Matt tries to appeal, but is to no avail. And that is what makes them great rivals, because this is something that has been at the core of the characters. Matt has always been about saving the city with his own body in mind. Wilson has always been using all the resources available to control it, but they always have the same goal: to prevent the city from spiraling out of control, from not just criminals, but also all sorts of dangers. And we know that New York is the magnet of all dangerous things. There's no mistake about it. But yeah, this is something that puts them in the same coin, but show the parallels, the differences between them. And that is something that I really enjoy about this entire season and throughout Daredevil's history. That Matt and Wilson are not as different as they think they were. And Matt realizes that they're probably the same person, that have the same thoughts. And that is something that he struggles with. But in the end, we know that Matt is still a good guy, and Wilson, despite his best intentions, he's still resorting to the same abuse that his father inflicted into him all those years ago. So definitely food for thought for that. Now, one thing before I finish, talk about the symbolisms and callbacks. There's a ton of symbolisms through the clothes, the items, the objects that we saw throughout the episode, even the cinematography and the light. They're showing the parallels, the foreshadowings, and everything that will happen or was about to happen in that moment in those episodes. So I really like that. I really enjoy that, especially the one with Wilson's rabbit in the snowstorm covered in blood, and now he destroyed it. So yeah, everything that he once found solace is now being destroyed, and that will lead to a dangerous man. I also want to appreciate the creators to bring back some of the aesthetics and some of the feels of the original Daredevil series. Not just from the scenes that we saw in episode 5 in Grand Design, we're seeing Foggy and Matt before they became who they were, before we saw Wilson donning his white shirt, white tuxedo and suit, but also the scenes, the callbacks, and all the mentions of previous events. That I appreciate that, and I'm very glad that they actually acknowledge that acknowledging continuity is not a bad thing. And before I forget, did I just saw a reflection of the Watcher in episode 4? I mean, this is a big event that will have consequences, so it only makes sense that Watcher is watching. So yeah, and yeah, the show creator confirmed that is Watcher watching. It's just incredible. But yeah, overall, these episodes are just upping the ante and making this show really, really great. I really, really think that you should watch those episodes because it will give you an idea of what the characters are right now and what could happen to them after this season has ended. So all that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Next week is going to be a little bit different, so stay tuned. And then after that week, we review the final 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again Season 2. So I hope you guys enjoyed my video. Sorry for my voice, I'm getting a little cold, but I hope I recover by the time I make the other episodes. Till then, I've been Enrique, and I'll see you next time. Peace.